What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Music Bowl. My name is Herd. I will be your pilot for today. We are currently on 97, which is going to run along the Delaware River. I've taken this route many times. If we keep going straight at this point, we will hit the Hawk's Nest. But today, we're going to cut north on 42 toward Monticello. Just felt like, you know, changing up the old path for a little bit. Once we get to Monticello, I'm going to shoot west, which will connect to some random road. I don't think it has a number, and I don't remember what it's called, but it will eventually connect us back to 97, but it will be past the Hawk's Nest. So I will come through the Hawk's Nest today, but from the other direction. At least that's the plan. We'll see how I'm feeling when we get to Monticello, which is maybe only 15 or 20 miles. It's not that big of a stretch on this section, but it is, if I remember correctly, I think I've only taken this path once, and I believe it's pretty windy. Not super windy. You see we got passing zones and stuff, but it should be curving a little bit for us here today, and it's definitely all in the woods, so at least we'll have good tree views to be checking out the whole time. So, with that as our intro, what I want to talk about today is my advice for about-to-be college students, or maybe just reminders for those of you who are in college and young professionals, and I guess just in general some advice, some things that I have gleaned over the years, some things that I remember doing when I was in college that I feel like helped me out. And so yeah, that's the big thing. And so this, I wasn't planning on doing one of these, but a student of mine who is about to become a college music student, they just graduated and they are continuing on into the music profession, and they posted a meme the other day that, while true, also needs some clarifying, I felt. As most memes do. I feel like far too often, as a side note, most people get information and news from memes, and like, okay, they at least get you on the path, but like, we gotta make sure we're still clarifying things and, you know what we're talking about. So, the meme said, "Dear musicians, your worth and value," I don't remember, is that either worth or value? We'll say worth. "Your worth does not come from the amount of hours that you practice today." And absolutely true. But there's two big things that I want to point out with this. And the first is, I think it should be changed to, "Dear musicians, your worth does not come from any of your musical output." Like, no matter what you do as a musician, no matter how much you practice, no matter how quote-unquote good you get, no matter what you're performing, what field of music you are in, the things you are doing, none of that is tied to your worth. Especially in music college, it might feel like that sometimes because you're going to be spending so much time on your instrument and like doing musical things, but that's going to be one of the biggest things that I hope all of us, no matter what stage we are, kind of keep taking with us, is that you know, we are not just the music and the output of our musical abilities. And I think that one of the very few good things we could take from the pandemic was that fact. Like, that was it hammered home that idea for me that we are so much more than just the music that we create. And I mean, even just me, like, even just how much I ride this dang thing. Like, I bought it in November and I've got almost 5,000 miles on it already, right? And so this is a big aspect of who I am that I get to share with people freely. There are going to be many other aspects of your humanity that you should be trying to share as well, aside from just your music. Now, at least in terms of what you're putting out into the world on social media, you maybe, like, and maybe this is a talk for another day, but like if you're a musician, you should be doing musical things, right? So it always annoys me when I go to a musician's page and it's like either just photos or has like non-musical things at all. It's like, shut up and play music. That's a whole other thing though. But in terms of what you are doing with your life, bear in mind at all times that your humanity is not tied to your musical output. You are allowed to do other things. You are allowed to like other things. And you should be doing more than just the music, because I'm trying to figure out, I want to make sure I get this wording correctly. Your music, man, this is a tough one. The way you play will be dictated by your humanity. And if you are not feeding yourself, ooh, there's a nice little pond and stream, whatever we're calling that. If you are not feeding yourself as a human and a person, it's going to show in your music. Your music will be very mechanical and robotic, and no one will care what you have to say. So make sure that you are doing other stuff. You need to have stuff to bring to the music to tell that story. And now, the whole other side of this that you have to be very careful about is that you still have to put the time in. If you only practice a half hour a day, you will only get so good. I don't care who you are. You, especially as a college student, you are going to have so much more time to practice as a college student than you will once you get out. You have to do the work when you're in college. You have to. There's no way around it. And like the reason that I can practice, let's say less than half an hour a day, the reason I can not really have to practice at all is because of how much time I put in college. And I have such a high level to fall back on. I say high level, you know what I mean. I have a lot of skills to fall back on. So that way when I go to play pretty much anything I need to play, well, not anything, but when I go to play like my normal stuff, I don't have to practice. And I know at this point what I have to practice very specifically. I know what I'm really bad at, I know what I'm very good at. So when I get a gig, when someone says, hey, can you come play this? I have a general idea of how long that's going to take me, and I know how much work I'm going to have to put in, because I've done so much of that grunt work already. And if I hadn't, I'd probably still be figuring that out. And I think a lot of musicians would feel the same way. And would at least agree with me that you're never going to have more time to practice than when you are in college. So, yeah, make sure the humanity is not tied to that, but please understand that in a half hour a day, you will only get so far. You are going to have to put in serious time, and I mean 4 to 6 hours a day. I really do. I know you're probably going to have a job. I know you're going to have a lot of other work to do, but here's a couple of rules that I employed that always helped. Firstly, that 4 to 6 hours a day does not always necessarily mean time playing your instrument. Maybe only 2 to 3 of that is actually you playing your instrument. The other couple hours is going to be in-depth score study, right? Like actually looking at your clarinet parts, your trombone parts, my classical guitar parts, whatever I was learning, studying them. What chords am I actually playing? What's really going on? Where are my cadences? All the fancy stuff that you're going to learn in music theory, and all the stuff you learn throughout music history. Come on, lead. All of that stuff, that one I wasn't going to make, is going to come into play when you're score studying. And that's going to take a lot of time, especially at the beginning when you're very unsure of like what scales are, what chords are, but you have to do the work. The other part of that is going to be active listening, and I don't mean put it on in the background while you then do your music history homework or your theory homework or you're hanging out with friends. I mean you are sitting in a room, staring at a wall, while you listen to whatever it is you're listening to. Sometimes it will be the music you have to perform. Sometimes it will be other music of that genre. So if you're going to be a singer, right, you're just listening to what classical opera vocalists sound like when they're singing art songs, because it's a very specific thing, and you have to know what that sound is to try and reproduce it. And you're going to get very familiar with the voices of the people that you keep coming back to. I liken it to if a random number calls me and I answer. First of all, no one answers random numbers nowadays, but let's say I do. Man, that was a huge bug that just slammed into me. Let's say I do, and I answer this random number. If it's my mom, my sister, my brother, one of my good friends, I know who that is because I've heard their voice so many times. I can pretty much do the same thing now with John Coltrane, Dexter Gordon, Charlie Parker, John Patitucci, The Fellowship, right? Like, I have so many, I've listened to that stuff for so many hours that I know what those people sound like through their instruments, and you have to become acquainted with that style. Like, what does it sound like? What do great opera singers, trombone players, classical guitarists, what do they sound like? You have to put the time in listening and understanding that stuff. And sometimes, aside from just staring at the wall doing that, you're also going to be listening with the score in your lap. I, at least once a month, would go to the library and check out and take out the score for Ravel's Daphne and Chloe. And I pretty much have that piece of music memorized at this point, and I'm pretty sure there was one semester where I would just keep renewing it, and I had it the entire time. Like, I was the only one who had the Daphne and Chloe score by Ravel for the whole semester. I absolutely love that piece, and I did that with so much more. I remember very specifically studying the scores for Mahler's First Symphony when I had to play that with my community orchestra. And it was the rehearsal was every Monday, and every Monday, myself and my roommate, who was a percussionist in that same orchestra, we would get our scores out, and we would just listen to the entire hour symphony, following along with our parts. Sometimes it was just our part, sometimes it was the whole score, sometimes we'd listen to it twice in a day if we had the time. 2 hours to devote to one symphony, at that time in our life when we did have jobs and other things, was a little much, but we always did at least 1 hour of listening before rehearsal. And that was what we did Mondays. And then you have a 4-hour rehearsal, you know, so you get to know this stuff. And then and then obviously I'm practicing it throughout the week, I'm working on my stuff, doing more listening, but we made a point to listen together. And so that's one big tip, I guess, that you could take away from this, is very quickly, for those of you, if you don't have a listening group, you need to have that. You need to have a group of people that are as big of a nerd as you are and love to just sit in a room and listen to music and follow the scores. If you don't have that, doing it on your own is going to be very tough. You're going to have to. So don't get me wrong, if you can't find it, it's not like, oh well, I can't do it. You do it alone. And now as an adult, I do that all the time, right? I don't have a big core of listening friends around me, so I'm doing that stuff on my own, but I just happen to love it. You are going to have to do it as college students and as young professionals. And where is this guy turning? Good grief. Yeah, what else with that? There was another big point I wanted to make. 4 hours, not just playing. You can listen. There was one other big thing I wanted to mention. Let me see here. Also, I hope you have been enjoying the views. I'm absolutely loving these woods. And this road is a little straighter than I remember, but that's kind of good because as an Italian, I like to talk with my hands. So this has actually been a lot more fluent of a talk for me. I guess that's just the main big thing, is that no matter what, your humanity can't be tied to the music, but you have to put the time in. Other tips for how to get 4 hours a day. So one other thing that I did, and I was fortunate enough as a classical guitar player I could do this, but my guitar was just with me always. And especially if I was in my dorm in between classes or at the end of a day, whatever, it was out of its case and either in a guitar stand next to me or just leaning against my desk. And anytime I had like a 5-minute free period where I was waiting for a YouTube video to load, or I was waiting for the water to boil for my mac and cheese, or whatever it was, I would just work on like a 4-bar phrase, picaflor. And that's another great way to practice, is these short bursts. 15-20 minutes here, you got some time to kill between a class, put your clarinet together and play, right? Like just find a quiet corner or a practice room and just like work on 4 bars of something. And then when you come to it later in your actual dedicated session, you've worked on those things, you can work on more musicality, you have other things you can do. But that was something that I always had my guitar out. I was always that dude who was just playing, but I just absolutely loved it, right? It was fun for me to sit in a room and just play. And luckily enough, my roommates didn't care, so I could do that, where no one minded if I just sat and played guitar in my room, because it was classical guitar. It's not like I was playing like super loud or crazy or anything like that. I was just playing, you know, acoustic classical guitar stuff, which is a lot quieter, very easy on the ears, so no one really minded. I will say I was at least courteous to the point where I would not play for like an hour of just the same 4 bars going over that kind of stuff, right? Like if I had serious work to do, I would go to a practice room and spend my hour working on those 4 bars very repetitively, drone-like. So if I was practicing in the dorms, I was almost giving little mini performances. I would still work on stuff. I might play an A section of something a bunch of times, but I would play whole phrases and work on things that way. And that is another way to just work on the musicality and the flow of a piece. I remember playing for my RA and his girlfriend all the time in my first year of college, right? He was one of the great and nicest people I ever encountered in college to begin with. I still have amazing memories of living with him, and his girlfriend, who's now his wife, was always over, which, you know, that's how it was. And I would just like give little mini concerts to them all the time, and that was a really, really good way for me to just practice performing, so that when it came time to perform, I knew what I was going to do, and I was literally never nervous. But I was performing constantly, and I viewed those as performances. If I made a mistake, I just powered through. All that kind of stuff you would normally do if you have 60,000 people watching, I would do for them, or whoever was in the room. So just be aware of that. Like, you can, you know, use your audience or whoever is available to be your audience to kind of help yourself practice in those things as well. So that's the whole practice side of things. Those are my big tips with that. If I need to clarify more things, as always, please reach out. The other big thing that I made sure to do is Monday through Thursday were work days. I still might stay up like way later than I needed to, because I was in, you know, in the music building's auditorium playing jazz. I'm not gonna lie, like that's what we did most nights. I was still maybe having fun with what I did, but Monday through Thursday were work days. I didn't play any video games. I didn't really party at all. I didn't like do anything other than just schoolwork. I would relax. I would have dinner. I'd hang with friends, but there was minimal time doing that stuff. I wouldn't spend 5 hours playing video games. I didn't really play video games at all during the semesters. That was one of my rules. But I wouldn't really watch that much TV other than like an episode to wind down after some classes before I went and did more work. Or I'd watch, you know, 2 half-hour episodes, one while eating dinner, one while, you know, just relaxing, and then I'd go and do my work. However, Friday at 5 o'clock, after wind ensemble rehearsal, you're done. Like, that is the end of my work week. And so Friday, 5 p.m., I am no longer doing anything. I might still play guitar because I loved it. What's going on here? Can't tell if that was Amish kids or something else going on. Looks like, it's Hebrew school, or Hebrew camp, Hebrew school. I'm not sure what is going on. Anyway, Looks like yes, there's some kind of it is, oh, this is a oh, it's okay, it's this like Jewish camp thing here is finally up and running for the summer. The last couple of times I've been through here, there have not been people. Anyway, yes, so Friday 5 o'clock, done working entirely. Like, I'm not doing it at all. If I wanted to go and like play jazz, I might do that, but I wasn't doing homework. I wasn't putting in serious time in a practice room. I wasn't doing listening stuff. Actually, that's not entirely true, because my group of friends, we just love to do it, so we might have, but we wouldn't have done it because we felt like we had to. It was just like, got some time, anybody want to listen to some Coltrane and analyze this stuff? Yeah, cool, okay. And that's kind of what we did. I also was fortunate enough to be playing lots of gigs on Friday and or Saturday nights, so my weekends were usually accounted for in that manner. Saturday was very similar, where I would work in the morning. Well, I'd sleep in, obviously, but then you get up, do what work you need to for the day, and by about 5 or 6 o'clock you're done. And you have to work on Saturdays. Budget your time, you know, write your essays, do your things, do them slowly throughout the semester. I never once had to pull an all-nighter. I never had to cram. Like, you're an adult, figure your life out so you don't have to do that kind of stuff. It will make things so much easier, I promise. And then, yeah, by 5, 6 o'clock I'd be done. And then they're not turning around. I was going a little bit quicker than 30. Okay. Actually, Sunday was no work at all. The only times I would break those rules is if it was coming up to juries week or like finals, end of the semester stuff, but that should be it. And it was not to pull all-nighters. It was, I might extend my Saturday by an hour or two, and I might do some stuff Sunday afternoon into the evening. I think I need to turn here. But it was that kind of stuff. It was not, you know, to pull all-nighters and to cram. This is a tough corner. I don't like this one. Okay. Yeah, it was just a means to get stuff done for the end of the semester. But that was my way of making sure that I did other fun things besides just work, and that was a good way to make sure I never had to cram for anything. I never had to pull all-nighters, any of that stuff. Just budget your time, work smart, do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, and your whole experience will be a lot better. And I know a lot of you, especially the students that I have that are going to become music students, a lot of you are very studious people anyway, so some of that is preaching to the choir, but it can be very easy when you first get to college when you're going to have a lot more free time, right? You're not even going to be in classes for 8 hours a day anymore. You might only have a couple classes in the day, and then you have to learn how to budget and manage your time. This was one of the tactics that I employed, was just Friday 5 o'clock, you're done, which ensures and forces you to do your work during the week slowly and progressively. Slow progress is still progress, so just do what needs to be done, because you don't want to have to get to a Sunday night and you're cramming for a paper due Monday morning. I know in high school you could do that stuff. I know in high school you could turn stuff in late. It's not going to happen in college, I promise you. Just ain't going to do it. 4:30, we've only gone about, yeah, okay, we're still going to keep going then. So I guess all that to say, just make sure that you are studious and responsible, but also have fun, because I did. College was great. I really enjoyed it. But I think it was because of those little restrictions that I put on myself that allowed me to have as much fun as my friends, but also still get very good grades. It was just little things like that that, you know, kind of helped me out. So for what all of that is worth, you know, use this in any way you need to. Make your own tweaks, find out what other people are doing, and employ a system that is going to work for you. So don't just take my word for it, and by all means, please reach out. And if you have any clarifying questions or, you know, anything that needs to be addressed, obviously, let me know. With that, as I jump on the highway here, I will let you go. There's not going to be all that many views at this point for another 10 miles or so, I will let you to it. Thanks for listening, guys. This has been another episode of The Music Bowl.